Hey everyone! I'm Albert Boris. So, around a year ago, I made a video where I ranked the worlds of New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Let's see how it's doing. Okay, nothing could have prepared me for this success. What initially started out as just another ranking on the channel has now quickly risen to become one of my top most viewed videos ever, out of nowhere, and I'm super happy about it. It was a really fun video to make on my part, as I hold a lot of nostalgia for that game, but it was also one of the first videos I made after I started branching out my content. So, thank you all. And to follow up on this, I think it's finally time for a sequel video. Today, to kick off December, we're gonna be ranking the worlds of New Super Mario Bros. U. I grew up playing the New Super games a ton in my childhood, and while they don't quite hold up compared to most other Mario adventures, with the more generic level design, they still hold a pretty special place in my heart, and are perfectly functioning Mario platformers. New Super Mario Bros. U in particular is an interesting game to talk about, because on one hand, it's both the most unique installment, but also the most underwhelming one. Because while it does have more twists to stand out with than its predecessors, it never really does anything interesting with them. And unfortunately, the worlds are where this problem becomes the most apparent. Because they're kinda creative, but not really at the same time. Which is why I wanted to rank them from worst to best today, and see which ones stood out, and which ones needed a little more time in the oven. So yeah, with all of that being said, I say, let's get started. Coming in at last place, we have Acorn Plains: The First World. Nintendo, why? Why did you make it so plain? So, this game, unlike the other New Soups, actually decides to put an interesting spin on the premise. Because instead of Bowser just kidnapping Peach, this time he takes over her castle instead, and you have to make your way back to it to defeat him. And it's a cool twist, having the home base be the destination, since it means that the first world could be something entirely else than the typical grassland. It wasn't. It's still the same open fields, except a bit more forestry, and with more forgettable music, and washed out colors. Everything looks like it's just a different shade of blue or green, making the already basic levels here even more unappealing and ugly. The first level isn't too bad, it's a decent introduction to how the raccoon suit power-up works, but then the rest of it just blends together. Of course 1-2 is just a basic underground, and of course 1-3 is just the obligatory Yoshi tutorial. And what even were the castle and tower levels like? Thankfully, 1-4 and 1-5 are a little more interesting than the rest, mostly because they give you access to the pink baby Yoshi, which allows you to kind of float through the stages. It gives them slightly more distinct gameplay variety, even if it's minimal, and also makes them too easy. And I guess the bonus level is pretty cool too, because while I don't like swimming, I do think the whole underwater cave aesthetic is a bit unique, plus getting extra boosts from these pipes makes it a breeze. But yeah, overall, Acorn Plains is just kinda boring and formulaic. There's nothing I hate about it, but nothing that drives my gears in the slightest. It's so uninteresting, despite trying to have a more unique theme. Honestly, I might prefer World 1 in New Super Mario Bros. Wii, because yes, while it may have an even more basic theme, at least it doesn't set me up for disappointment. Plus it just had a better flow. Next up, the second worst world is the second world, Layer Cake Desert.
So, where's the cake?
Are you f***ing kidding me? So, when you first get to this world, it looks pretty wonderful actually. A desert with cakes all over? It's almost like a dessert. But no, it's just a background detail in some levels, and even saying that is kinda pushing it. I mean, at least it's more beautiful than Wii's barren wastelands, but wow. This is false advertising! Really, it's just any other desert, and that's fine. Some of the levels like the Stone Eye Zone and Sunset Mushroom Stage are interesting enough, while others are just frustrating. It was bad when New Super Mario Bros. Wii had a dark underground level in its desert. Well, how about 2 of them this time? Or well, okay, 2-2 only has it at the end, but it's still annoying beforehand as well with all the pokies and quicksand. The fact that they walk on the ceiling and there's a bunch of desert geysers means you have to take it so slowly, which really halts the pacing. And 2-3 could be worse because at least you can light up the level, barely, with the glow Yoshi, but it's still bad. And screw 2-4 for having the most cryptic secret exit ever. Because yeah, of course I should just run into a random pillar while in mini form. Great game design, The other stages aren't half bad, just nothing too memorable. And again, the secret stage was okay, because while it is out of place to have a snow level here, at least the falling ice cubes make for some engaging gameplay. But yeah, overall, Layer Cake Desert is just another kind of unpleasant world. It's slightly more frustrating, but also more interesting than Acorn Plains, putting it one slot above. In 7th place, we have, get this, World 7, also known as Meringue Clouds. So I'm not really too big on sky themes in Mario games. It's not a bad setting per se, but in 90% of cases, the cloud levels just end up feeling uninspired compared to the rest of the game, because by itself, it's usually just the regular athletic levels. You know, the same ones you see in World 1, except harder. And well, unfortunately, Meringue Clouds does fall victim to this a bit. You have random auto-scroller, random sky level with Yoshi, as well as the worst level in the entire game. I already hate ghost houses as they are, as they really just over-glorify the troll stages with hidden walls everywhere, but this one just takes it too far. What kind of asshole makes the secret exit easier to find than a normal one? I don't want to skip half the world. It's about the journey, not the destination. Other than that though, all the levels are at least playable, even the uninspired ones, and there's still a few standout stages with engaging gimmicks. And yeah, that includes 7-5, which is just rehashed from Wii except vertical. But also, I like how as you progress the world, the levels themselves become darker, turning to sunset and eventually night by the castle, which by the way is a pretty epic boss dungeon. The fact that it takes place outside the castle walls gives it much more personality, and the brewing storms in the distance really makes it feel that you're approaching the end game. And the airship level is also really great, having to dodge this huge hand slamming into the ground. So yeah, overall, Meringue Clouds is okay. It's unoriginal, but decent enough. So, remember what I told you earlier about Bowser taking over Peach's castle? Yeah, it might as well be any other castle. Because in practice, World 8 Peach's castle is just your typical lava world as always, with the only difference being that you can see her castle in the distance from one of the levels. Well, what a way to waste such a unique concept. What even was the point? The worst part though is that there's only a total of 6 levels, the least out of any world here. And one of them is also just a secret stage, so make that 5. I've said a few times that this game needed more time in the oven to be polished, but this is the world that most screams it. It's such a rushed finale, and you can really tell that they just wanted to get it over with. Wait, what's that you say? The levels here are still great? Well, thank God. As it turns out, this is the first world on the list to not have a single bad level at all. They're not the most original bunch ever, but they're all decently engaging with difficult enough gimmicks. Whether it's avoiding meteors, getting rid of enemies on your raft while smoke is approaching, or this vertical elevator ride where you need to outrun the lava. The last of which is especially unique as it's technically a castle level, but it doesn't have a boss. Unfortunately, the final boss just exists though. The lead up is kinda boring as it's just avoiding Bowser Jr., and then the battle itself is a glorified coupling fight, only bigger and slightly harder. So yeah, overall, Peach's castle is painfully average. Having great levels does not salvage an underwhelming finale. In 5th place, we have Superstar Road, the secret 9th world. So this one I never actually played up until a few weeks ago. Yeah, for some reason I was never really too incentive to 100% this game like the other new soups. And so this world kind of just ended up on the back burner until now. And well, it's alright. Being a special world, it has a completely different structure with no boss dungeons or any of that. Instead, you unlock each of the levels by getting all of the star coins in each world, and they're all based on a particular area of the game. And while these are definitely some of the hardest and most unique stages in the game yet. You got a Skelecoaster in broad daylight, a P-Switch desert speedrun, this mountain stage with huge fire bars, as well as my personal favorite, this pendulum castle. It's actually genuinely difficult, especially with all the donut blocks. But then of course there's also stages I barely remember, like what even was the point of this underground cave, or this Lakitu stage. And I guess this painted swampland is kinda cool, but we already have a stage like that earlier in the game, and that one doesn't revolve around being a light auto-scroller. And the final level is kinda weird too, because you basically just breeze through it. I mean sure, you use this Koopa shell to find secrets, but otherwise it's a walk in the park. Realistically, this world probably shouldn't be too high, but I still wanted to give it credit for giving me a real challenge, and for what it's worth, it probably has individually some of the game's best levels. It's just that it doesn't really have any real structure, which is why it's right in the middle on my ranking. World 4 Frosted Glacier takes the number 4 spot on my list. This one basically goes all out on theming and a little less so on the levels. Unlike other snow worlds, this one takes place under a beautiful night sky, and it's gorgeous. The overworld music is much more jolly, and the skyline just gets so stellar at times, especially with the Aurora Borealis. And as for the levels themselves, they're good, but nothing too interesting. It kinda peaks for the first level, where you have these spinning star platforms, and then everything else is really just ideas reused from Wii's World 3, except without the penguin suit. But I mean, they're still fun levels, alright. I still like jumping over Cooligans, freezing bullet bills, as well as navigating treacherous ice caves. And on the flip side, you're also given a blue baby Yoshi halfway through, which allows you to basically become Bubble Mario Jr. It's nowhere near as useful as the real Bubble Flower, but it brings some diversity into the gameplay nevertheless. Also, bad Ghost House level is still bad, but overall, it's a pretty good world. There's better, but I don't have any outright issues with it. Opening up the top 3, now we get to the worlds that I think are actually pretty great, starting with World 6 Rock Candy Mines, even though there is no rock candy here. Why are these worlds even named after foods when they're not themed after them? Good thing this world has other feet to stand on though, because I love the structure of Rock Candy Mines. The mountain theming is admittedly forgettable, but I love how in order to proceed to the next levels, you also have to activate these switches that open up pathways. Admittedly, it doesn't really change that much. If you beat a level, you kind of automatically gain access to the next stage, but still, it makes the overworld exploration a little more engaging. And on another note, if you find a specific secret exit, it does lead to a shortcut to the castle, which is actually required to get all of the star coins there, which is super cool. And as for the levels, well, what they like in theme, they make up in challenge. You got this Yoshi stage with fuzzes and ice piranha plants, this underground Skelecoaster, a vertical mountain filled with skedaddlers, and even 2 separate tower levels, both of which are easily the 2 best ones in the game, as the first one has Boom Boom flying as a boss, and the second one has Boss Sumo Bro, who admittedly I love more now because of his Mario Party Jamboree fight, but still, having a brand new boss does bring out some variety. And on the whole, I love how Rock Candy Mines truly feels like you're closing in on your adventure. It's big, it's difficult, and shockingly memorable. Now this one is probably gonna be surprising. In second place, the silver medal goes to World 3, Sparkling Waters. Or well, okay, technically you can do World 3 and 4 in whichever order you like, but come on. Now yes, this is a water world, which means you have to do a lot of swimming. But actually, it's not so bad if you play the Switch port of the game, since it gives you access to Toadette. And the second underwater level is admittedly pretty exciting, with the Dragon Eel chasing you, who, by the way, also had a stellar Mario Party boss recently. But yeah, while I don't like the underwater theme, at least it's just 2 stages in this world. What I do love though is the relaxing and cheerful beach theme. And luckily, the beach levels here are also some of the most unique stages in this game. Most of them take advantage of these water geysers, but they blend them in with a lot of other gimmicks as well, whether it's these rock tossing crabs, jumping Cheep Cheeps, another baby Yoshi, or heck, even mini mushrooms that let you run up them. Even the ghost house is half decent in this world, because yeah, it still has all of the problems I typically have with these stages, but at least the theming is a shipwreck, which makes it a bit more standout-ish, I guess. Although the crown of the jewel is actually Larry's Torpedo Castle. See, Torpedo Teds are probably some of my favorite enemies in the Mario franchise. They're like bullet bills, but underwater.
Did you know that?
Okay, but seriously, they're also much bigger, faster, and more imposing due to being indestructible, making underwater platforming a lot more challenging, especially when there's so many of them. And considering how much of a rarity they are in the Mario series, it leaves a much stronger impression when they actually do get a standout level. Overall though, I love Sparkling Waters. It's just that my favorite world reaches even greater highs. And that is World 5 Soda Jungle. There was no doubt that this would take the number 1 spot for me. Out of all the game's worlds, this is by far the largest one, with the most levels, as well as the most dynamic overworld map. I've already said in the past that the forest theme is one of my favorites in the Mario franchise, as not only do I love greenery and woods in real life, but in the context of Mario, it also usually has the most vibrant colors and enemies too, and that is certainly true here. It already starts off strongly with an airship level, and oh my god, it's red torpedo tents! And better yet, they're used for the boss fight?
It was perfect.
The rest of the levels are generally also good, whether it's this giant Blackland or this dark spooky Bramble forest. But the cream of the crop is after the mid-boss, where you go into the dark woods. Not only does this section have a unique gimmick where you must find the secret exit to proceed, but it's also where you find the most creative level in the entire game, Painted Swampland. I don't even need to explain, just take one look and you instantly see why. I mean sure, there's still a mediocre ghost house, but hey, not everything can be perfect. It also helps that Iggy Koopa is the only remotely challenging world boss in the entire game. Most of the other Koopaling fights here are fine. They definitely have more interesting ideas than in their previous incarnations, but they're also just so painfully predictable that you can cheese their battles every time. But not Iggy though. You never know when he's gonna come out of his shell because of the pipes he passes through, so you always have to pay extra attention, because this guy is fast. Overall, Soda Jungle is easily the best world in this game, and even one of the best new Super Mario Bros. Worlds ever, no contest. And so, there you have it, my full ranking of the 9 worlds in New Super Mario Bros. U. It was about time that I finally got around to making this list. I had a ton of fun making this ranking for you guys, and I hope you all enjoyed watching it greatly as well. Let me know down below what videos you want me to do next. And make sure to like, share and subscribe to my channel. Join my Discord server, Greenpipe City, and follow me on Twitter and Patreon for more updates, and I'll see you all soon. Until next time.